Imagine this. You're standing in a room filled with people you've known for years. Friends, colleagues, family. And yet, there's a silent agreement unspoken, but heavy. Be nice. Be agreeable. Don't cause waves. Smile, even when your soul is on fire. So you do. You nod when you should speak up. You tolerate when you should rebel. You submit when your blood screams to rise. Because that's what good people do, isn't it? That's what you were taught. That the world rewards kindness. That compromise is virtue. That being the bigger person is the mark of moral maturity. But here's the paradox no one dares to question. If being good is so noble, why do wolves run the world while dogs wait for scraps? If the world is built on fairness, why do the ruthless sleep in castles while the kind die in silence? Now imagine this. You were never raised to be strong. You were trained to be tame. Tame enough to please. Tame enough to serve. Tame enough to devour your own rage before it ever reaches the surface. Every time you held back truth to protect someone's feelings. Every time you swallowed your instincts to fit into someone else's frame. Every time you betrayed yourself in the name of peace. You weren't choosing virtue. You were feeding the dog inside you. A creature conditioned to obey, to beg for approval, to sacrifice the very teeth it was born with. And while the dog waits for permission, the wolf takes what it needs. So here's the question you must ask, one that claws through the polite facade of your life. What part of you had to die so you could be loved? And more importantly, what part of you is still chained up, howling in the dark, begging you to set it free? Because if Machiavelli was right, and history suggests he was, then morality without power is just another leash. Are you ready to break it? Then we must dig deeper into the roots of this silent obedience, this beautiful decay, into the soft lies we were told, and the psychological cage we still sleep in. Let's descend. The leash wasn't made of iron. It was made of praise. Good boy. Such a polite girl. Don't talk back. Be nice. Each word, a silk thread, harmless alone. But together, they form the invisible collar. You see, the dog in you didn't appear by chance. It was engineered systematically, carefully, by a society that fears wildness. Not wildness in the sense of chaos, but the wildness of will, of someone who knows who they are and doesn't ask permission to be it. Carl Jung warned us, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. And so, we inherited not just their dreams, but their fears, their guilt, their need for approval, their addiction to being liked. From childhood, we are taught that virtue means self-denial, that to serve others is to become good, that ambition is arrogance and assertiveness is aggression. But Nietzsche would call this slave morality, a system built by the weak to shame the strong. A moral framework designed not to elevate the soul, but to neutralize the predator. The dog is rewarded because the dog is predictable. The wolf is punished because the wolf cannot be controlled. But here's the deeper wound. This isn't just social conditioning. It's psychological survival. As a child, love was oxygen. And we learned early that disobedience came with withdrawal, emotional exile, the subtle chill of a parent's disappointment, the silent punishment of rejection. So we adapted. We learned to muzzle the wolf, to bury our anger, suppress our power, and silence our voice, all for the warmth of belonging. But what no one told you is that every time you choose comfort over truth, a fracture forms inside you. A war begins between the part of you that wants to belong and the part of you that wants to live. Arthur Schopenhauer described life as a tension between the will, that raw force of instinct and desire, and the constraints of the world. Most people numb the will because it's easier to be accepted than it is to be free. But this comes at a cost, because the wolf doesn't die when you ignore it. It waits and it rots. And in that rot grows bitterness, depression, self-loathing, all symptoms of a life lived too carefully. So the question isn't whether the wolf is in you. The question is how long it's been starving, and what happens when it finally decides to wake up. Shall we go further? You go through the motions. You smile at your boss while your stomach knots in protest. You laugh at the dinner table, even though you haven't felt truly alive in months. You agree. You compromise. You accommodate until your reflection becomes unrecognizable and no one notices. Because the world loves a tame person, a reliable one, someone who doesn't make things difficult. But deep beneath your well-managed life, something sinister festers. Resentment. It's the slow poison of suppressed truth. And it seeps into everything: your work, your relationships, your sense of self. You become polite but hollow, helpful but bitter, present but numb. You become a ghost that smiles. And the scariest part? You might call this maturity. You might even call this success. But your nervous system knows. Your subconscious remembers the wolf. When you betray yourself long enough, your body starts to scream. You call it anxiety, insomnia, fatigue, burnout, but it's none of these. It's your inner wildness suffocating under the weight of who you pretend to be. Modern psychology knows this all too well. The suppression of authentic emotion, especially anger and desire, leads to chronic stress, depression, even autoimmune illness, because to deny your instincts is to split from yourself. And yet the system encourages this fracture. Culture rewards self-abandonment. Be agreeable, be easygoing, be endlessly available. But neurologically, the cost is immense. When your prefrontal cortex, the social mask, overrides your limbic system, your emotional truth, too often, dissonance occurs. You become internally divided, performing stability while silently unraveling. It's no accident that so many live lives of quiet desperation. The philosopher Viktor Frankl said, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure." And that's exactly what happens. We numb with scrolling, comfort food, shallow relationships, distractions. We silence the howl by turning up the noise. But the wolf does not forget. Every unspoken boundary, every fake smile, every self-betrayal. It stores them, not to punish you, but to one day reclaim you. Because the truth is brutal. If you do not learn to roar, you will whimper for the rest of your life, and no one will rescue you, because everyone thinks you're fine. So now you must choose: will you keep dying in silence, or will you begin the rebellion? Let's talk about the revolt. The rebellion doesn't begin with rage. It begins with a whisper, a moment of clarity. A thought you've buried for years finally rises without apology. This is not who I am. You don't need to burn down your life in one night. You only need to stop pretending. The wolf doesn't demand chaos, it demands truth. It demands you. But truth is dangerous in a world built on performance. And that's why reclaiming it feels like betrayal. Because it is betrayal of the lie, of the obedient identity, of the trained dog you were told was you. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "You must learn how not to be good. Not because goodness is wrong, but because goodness without power is useless." He didn't say to become evil. He said to become dangerous and then choose restraint. To reclaim your wolf is to regain your capacity for power, aggression, and defiance, not to be ruled by them, but to possess them fully. To know that if pushed, you could tear through the illusion, the manipulation, the control. This is what Carl Jung called integrating the shadow. It's not becoming a villain, it's becoming whole. The man who has no teeth cannot offer peace. He can only offer submission. But the man who holds a sword and keeps it sheathed, he speaks and others listen. Because he could be dangerous, but chooses discipline. This is the wolf Machiavelli demands, not the savage brute, but the one who knows what he is capable of and no longer begs for scraps. So how do you begin? You say no when you mean no. You leave when your soul feels dead. You stop asking for permission to be what you already are. You start telling the truth, even when it shakes the room. Because there's a fire in you that was never meant to be domesticated. A deep knowing that your life is not a performance, not a peace treaty, not a polished mask. Your life is a force. And when you stop fearing your strength, when you stop apologizing for your clarity, when you stop performing obedience for the comfort of others, the dog dies and the wolf opens its eyes. Now we arrive at the final revelation, the truth that will change everything. Here it is, the truth that shatters the mirror. You weren't born to be good. You were born to be real. And real is not always gentle. Real is not always liked. Real is not safe. The dog in you was obsessed with being loved. The wolf in you doesn't need to be. This is the final betrayal. You've spent your life trying to become digestible, softened, filtered. You carved off your edges to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold you. And it worked. You became acceptable. But in doing so, you lost the one thing that could have saved you, your sovereignty. Because in a world built on manipulation, authenticity is rebellion. And power, the kind that matters, doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being undeniable. That doesn't mean cruelty. That means clarity. It means knowing what you stand for, even if it costs you the room. It means speaking a truth that silences the noise, even if your voice trembles. It means walking away from anything that demands your silence as the price of your belonging. Machiavelli was right. You must learn to be both lion and fox force and strategy. But deeper than that, you must become something far more dangerous to the world of illusions. Uncompromisingly yourself. This is not a call to violence. It's a call to alignment. To live in such a way that nothing inside you contradicts. To let your yes be full and your no be final. To walk through life without costumes, without leashes, without the constant ache of being too much or not enough. That's what the wolf is. It is the part of you that knows exactly who you are and doesn't flinch when the world demands you shrink. This is the final truth. You will lose people. You will make others uncomfortable. You may even stand alone. But in that silence, you'll hear something ancient, something wild, something free, the howl, not of rage, not of rebellion, but of return. Because you were never broken. You were just buried, under approval, under performance, under fear. Now you remember. Now you rise, kill the dog, awaken the wolf, and walk untamed into your life.